Chelsea have climbed to second after beating Tottenham by 4-3, and in this video we're going to be breaking down how they did it, including the tactical change that Enzo Maresca made to get his side the win. The beginning of the first half was fast, it was frenetic, and it was dominated by Tottenham, and this was down to the intensity that they began with, utilising Heung-min Son, Dominic Solanke and Brennan Johnson to place pressure onto Colwill, Badiashile and Cucurella meant that Chelsea were unable to progress the ball forwards into the centre of the pitch. Matasar and Kulusevski doing good jobs on Lavia and Caicedo respectively, and as well as Destiny Udogie onto Pedro Neto, meant that not only did this left hand side get dominated by Tottenham's players, but also it had a major knock-on effect for Marc Cucurella out on this left side, who failed to stand up to the pressure that was being applied to him. And when I say that Marc Cucurella failed to stand up against these challenges, I mean that very literally, as he slipped over in this instant that allowed Tottenham to get in for their first goal. Now, notice the pressure that's being applied not only by Dominic Solanke, but also Brennan Johnson here to Cucurella. This was a theme of Tottenham towards the start of the game, and Chelsea really failed to deal with it. And then once we move this on, we can see that Cucurella slips over, and then it's about whether Johnson can capitalise on the moment that has been afforded to him. It just so happens that he can, and Chelsea are in danger zone, running back towards their own goal. Badiashile yet again out of position once more, but I thought it was really well done from Tottenham. Notice this run from Dominic Solanke to pull around Colwill and then try to make a darting run into the box. And this is what I want to focus on right here. It's actually the duel between Solanke and Colwill. I think Solanke does a fantastic job of going left and then going right around Colwill once the ball comes in from Brennan Johnson. It's really well worked by Tottenham, and Tottenham get their lead. They get ahead, and that's down to the really quick-natured play of Tottenham, but also their aggressive approach at the start of the match. Chelsea were pressured into a major mistake moments later as Enzo Fernandez passes the ball back to Marc Cucurella, who I don't believe is set here. You just see here, he's just messing around with his hair. Now that might not be anything that's too crazy, but I think that's an indicator that he's not ready to receive that pass, and actually once he does receive the pass, he ends up falling over, giving the ball over to Brennan Johnson once more, who is then able to continue and recycle possession around, giving Tottenham the opportunity to maintain pressure and maintain an attack. Now, watch what happens with Pedro Porro, who makes a darting run. Kulusevski is going to take up a position between Colwill and Cucurella, who then wants to become aggressive after making that mistake. This is actually going to be a beginning of the motion that really starts to cost Chelsea. Once Kulusevski is in this position, they need to make sure that they don't afford him too much space. In fact, what's going to happen is he's allowed to drive in towards the centre of the box without any real meaningful challenge. He gets to a central area which is able to then give him the opportunity to have a shot. He manages to get it on target, and that's 2-0 Tottenham from a couple of really poor Chelsea mistakes, but the imbalance of that defence really did have an impact. But Tottenham's pressure came at a cost, and past around the 20th minute mark, Chelsea started to gain some momentum, especially through Romeo Lavia, who I thought had a fantastic half, being able to pick the ball up in these areas and just turn and play a pass direct into the striker or even into the attacking midfielder, whether it be Enzo Fernandez or Cole Palmer. It was this directness and precision of passing that allowed Chelsea to get on the front foot, isolating duels between Jadon Sancho and Pedro Porro and Pedro Neto and Destiny Udogie. It's through this that Chelsea started to get a foothold back into the match and allowed them to start to dictate attacking possession. Lavia was phenomenal at this, not only at winning the ball back, but also making those breaking passes into the likes of Jackson and Enzo and Cole Palmer, and then from that moment on, it allowed Chelsea to gain some momentum. It was through these patterns of play and directness of passing that allowed Chelsea to get into 1v1 situations. This is a good example of Jadon Sancho really getting that situation against Pedro Porro. Notice how high this Tottenham back line is, still retreating towards their own goal, but Jadon Sancho is going to utilise the space that's in the centre of the pitch because of how energetic Tottenham were to begin with. Look how open they are. They're not condensed at all. Look at the two midfielders. They're not marking Enzo Fernandez, who is going to make a brilliant off-the-ball run round to allow Sancho to come and drift infield. Again, really good work by these Chelsea players Fernandez's run taking away a couple of players, allowing Sancho to drift infield. And once he does drift infield, it's then about whether he has the quality to be able to not only take this space, but also make sure that he can have an opportunity onto goal. You've got Jackson who could make a run, you've got Neto here on this right-hand side, but Sancho decides to take it on for himself. Really well done, utilising that space, seizing that moment, and this is something that Chelsea players did so very well in this match. Sancho seized this moment and then managed to get Chelsea a goal back, and from that point on, it was game on. Picking up from where they left off in the first half, Chelsea maintained the momentum into this second half of the game, and that was bolstered by some of the changes that Enzo Maresca made. Moises Caicedo was moved away from that right back slot to move into midfield, and this is because Romeo Lavia was substituted for Malo Gusto. Now, it later came out the fact that Lavia actually felt something during the match, and it meant that Chelsea needed to make a change. But I think this had a fantastic knock-on effect for their balance within the side. So what ended up happening was that Gusto came in as this right back, as he naturally does, moving Caicedo further up into midfield. Caicedo was having a very interesting game, very strong in the challenge, very dominant in possession, but also out of possession. But what it ended up having a knock-on effect for was both Badiashile and Colwill. You see, because Gusto came into the back four, and because Caicedo moved into that right-sided midfield slot, Marco Correa was going to be the player that was going to move into that left 10. This moves Palmer over to that right-hand side, allowing Correa to move forwards. But it meant that something needed to change with the defensive build-up. Instead, Colwill needs to be the central player, and Badiashile and Colwill just swapped. Now, this naturally gave Chelsea a bit better balance in build-up, and that's because they started to have players who were naturally footed on the side that they were playing. So Gusto was right-footed and he was able to play on the right side. Badiashile is left-footed and he was able to play on the left side. Colwill, the side of his foot doesn't necessarily matter too much because he's playing centrally. And all of a sudden, you've got a better balance to the side. This means that passing lanes through from Badiashile were available. Passing lanes through from Gusto were available. Whereas in the first half, Badiashile really wasn't comfortable out on that right-hand side with his left foot. The passing lanes just weren't there and they weren't as available, which means that the plays into the central players and into the midfielders was struggling to be made. However, in the second half, that was not the case. They were able to then find these players, and then they were able to continue the progression of the football, finding the likes of Pedro Neto, finding Jadon Sancho, and then you're looking towards these runs into the centre. These are the runs that Marco Correa made quite a lot of the time. Enzo Fernandez also making those darting runs towards the box, and this is the pressure that was then placed onto Tottenham that forced them to make their first mistake. And it was the pressure and the build-up of momentum that started to cause all of this. And here we can see that moment. Moises Caicedo breaking from midfield to make a run for this Jadon Sancho pass through into the box. And then it's about whether Tottenham can keep their heads. The pressure was too great, and Bissouma makes a lunging challenge in to try and tackle Moises Caicedo, but fails to get the ball. And you can actually see his reaction here. He knows what he's done. Caicedo goes down and a penalty gets given. Cole Palmer obviously converts this penalty to brilliant effect, but it was the pressure that was applied by Chelsea from the very first minute of the second half, as well as those tactical changes and that balance that came through, that allowed them to get the equaliser. The more the momentum swung in Chelsea's favour due to their excellent positioning, due to their good passing and breaking of lines, the Tottenham shape started to fall apart on occasion, and that resulted in what you're seeing right here. Cole Palmer occupying this right-hand side, this right-hand inside channel next to Pedro Neto, where the Tottenham players start to converge on him. It's this nature to try and gravitate towards the real top star quality player that leaves others completely free, and I want to focus on both Cole Palmer and Enzo Fernandez, because as the Tottenham players start to converge onto Cole Palmer while he has the ball, brilliantly I might add, it leaves a lot of room for the likes of Enzo, for the likes of Jadon Sancho to be able to take up more attacking opportunities while not being marked. It's this lack of shape that really started to cause Tottenham some problems. Van de Ven being drawn in, the likes of Sarr and Bissouma moving towards Palmer without any defensive regard for the rest of the side, and then that is where Chelsea capitalise. And you can see this occurring right here. This is the completion of Chelsea's comeback. This allows them to go 3-2 up. And here we have Cole Palmer out on this right-hand side. Now remember what I said about the Tottenham Hotspur shape. You've got Kulusevski and Solanke on the edge of the box. You've got Basuma and Sarr out on this left-hand side of their own box. And you've also got Van de Ven and Udogie just moving around Cole Palmer, who currently is in possession of the football. But look at how many people he's taking with him. Look at the occupation of these Tottenham players, and this leaves the likes of Enzo Fernandez in acres of space, and we're going to be mentioning him a little bit later. This is so good from Cole Palmer. Look at how he's able to keep the ball on his feet. It's essentially glued to his foot, and he's taken 1, 2, 3, 4 players out of the game here. And as he takes a shot, it's a bit fortuitous because it lands towards Enzo Fernandez afterwards. He takes that shot, but look at the amount of space that Enzo Fernandez is in. This allows him to take a moment, take some time to be able to finish this shot and smash it home for Chelsea's comeback, for the completion of their comeback. It's brilliantly done. I think you could have some words about Pedro Porro not blocking the shot properly, but it's fantastic from Chelsea, and this is down to the real gravity that Cole Palmer possesses that takes players away from the obvious other quality talent that Chelsea have on offer. While I think that Tottenham need to be given a lot of credit for the start that they made and the pressure that they put Chelsea under, it was Chelsea's dominance with the ball but also without the ball that allowed them to progress and maintain this comeback against Spurs. It was the utilisation of this box formation not only with Caicedo and Enzo in midfield but also when Lavia was on the inside, the line breaking passes through into the more attacking areas, the 1v1 duels that started to go into Chelsea's favour, and the balance in this back three system that Enzo Maresca changed gave Chelsea the foothold that they needed to go on and get the win. Tottenham faltered on several occasions, and that was down to the excess pressure that was applied by Chelsea throughout the match. Chelsea looked by far the more comfortable side and the one that was going to go on and win the match, not only due to the individual battles but also the tactical setup of both sides. I was extremely impressed by them, and this was the game that I think Chelsea proved that they are absolutely title contenders.